What I want to do today is talk to you about the way that I see the energy industry developing. And I think it's really quite interesting when you look at this. When I first joined this industry only 10, 15 years ago, I think we looked very much internally at our own market. Europe was there, but we weren't really worrying about that. Today, we're not only worrying about what's going on in Europe, we're worrying about what's going on in the world. Now, this slide, I think, could sort of be the start of any presentation almost. The balance of power we know is shifting. The decline of the Western economy versus what's happening further east is having amazing effects. You know, if I just look back in the industry over the last 10 years, you know, the cost of transport for coal to power stations has almost trebled. There's just a shortage of fleet, and the whole industry is just changing. And I can assure you, I didn't know what was going to be said by Cargills this morning, but I understand they talked about rising prices, volatile commodity prices. Actually, we see exactly the same. And I think volatility in our industry is going to be even greater, and I'll talk more later on when I come to talk a little bit about what happens with the amount of renewable energy that we've got on the system, which is fine when that renewable energy can run, particularly if it's wind. But if it's not, you need backup generation. That is costly to leave mothballed. So therefore, when it does run, it's going to run at high prices. Now, is that acceptable from a political aspect? Is that acceptable from a regulatory aspect? There's a whole number of issues that I think that we're going to have to consider and how we manage that. And of course, at the same time, we've got the whole issue about, from our industry's point of view, how we really reduce CO2. But I know from your industry's point of view, how you reduce a whole number of other gases as well. And I suppose one of the things that we're very keen to sort of talk about from our industry point of view is that it's not just about green energy. This is about what we call cleaner and better energy. Because if you can actually reduce emissions by doing things with existing plant, that can make a significant difference as well. Now, across Europe, we face some very specific challenges. Now, in the near term, we don't see too many problems, and actually this is one area where the recession has really helped, because 2 years ago, we were looking at 2013, 2014 as there being an energy gap. So therefore, there was a real need for us to provide new generation very quickly. But actually what we saw, obviously, was a dip. And whilst we have seen some recovery, that recovery has really only brought us back to the levels we were at pre-recession. And of course, there's a lot of talk now about unconventional gas, shale gas. And I know there's a huge number of issues around that, but my belief, and E.ON's belief, is that this will come and this will extend the life of gas as a source. Now, as I said in the pipeline, we're seeing already, you know, this growing intermittent renewable energy. Now, some of this is great, but it's not all good news. As I said just now, you really do have to think about how are we going to address this as we get to a much tighter market, probably in about 3 or 4 years' time. How are we going to deal with that? What is going to be the cost? And that's where we really see more volatility coming into this market. And in the medium term, if we look out probably now only 7 years, about a third of UK generation, electricity generation, is going to need replacing. The old nuclear plant will have gone, a lot of the coal stations will have gone. That's going to require a huge amount of investment. And I can tell you, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to put a huge pressure on prices as we invest heavily in new plant. Now this here shows what the existing plant is on the system. The two blue lines are really just generating where we are today at peak demand and where we are with a margin of about 20%. And as I said just now, you can see around about 2017, 2018, even with the construction plans that we have already today, we face an energy shortage. Now, I'll talk in a minute about the opportunities that I think that gives you in your farming communities. But I think it's pretty obvious that with the land that you have, with the opportunities that you have, I would be wrong if I wasn't saying to you that if I was sat in your shoes, I would be looking to take more of this control into my own hands. And of course, when you look at how we're going to need to reduce carbon emissions, that the energy sector, which is the orangey piece, is the one that's really got to make the biggest contribution as we move through. That graph goes up obviously to just after 2020. And we've started to see that low carbon transition plan, but it really does have some problems in it. Because for us as energy companies, we can't see the way to invest in the lower carbon energy unless we have a reasonable carbon price. Now, those of you who have read press cuttings this morning will see that the steel industry this morning has stated that this is bad news for them. Because, of course, what it will do is push UK prices higher, and if that's not replicated across Europe, they will have a competitive disadvantage versus their European competitors. And we're going to see more of this across a whole number of industries as we move forward. But my belief, and I think this slide sort of is probably the best one to say it, is if you look at the latest forecasts that Ofgem have put out in terms of what they see happening to energy prices, particularly electricity prices, over the next decade, you see numbers between 60, 80, 100%. I would say to you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think it really matters whether it's 60, 80 or 100. What it is there is a significant increase in what must be one of your significant input costs. Now, you may well be seeing in food prices some increases, and you may think, well, they're going to mirror what's happening in energy. But I don't think that's the right answer. I think that now is a time for you to be looking at opportunities whereby you can take more control of what you're doing with your energy costs. Now, I say that there is market reform going on. It's at the consultation stage, and of course, there are a number of people with different views. So which view is going to prevail here? Well, I think probably we will end up with a low carbon floor, which is a guaranteed price, because that is the only way that I see the amount of plant being built that this country needs. Now, that will, as I say, cause problems for energy-intensive industries, because this is going to be one of the things that will fuel the increase in prices that we will see coming. But where it will end up, who knows? But for me, this will definitely be a key contributor to the increase in prices. Now, I'm afraid to say our industry, probably similar to yours, is riddled with a lot of new legislation coming through, and the vast majority of it is designed to reduce the emission levels that you saw that we've got to do. Now, the automated meter reading, which is AMR, that's the key thing that's coming, and by 2014, most medium-sized customers have it. Not all farmers will get that at that stage, but a lot of you will. Now, this brings a lot of benefits for us, but equally, I think it's going to be another cost that industry, consumers are all going to bear, and it's something that government is very nervous about talking about, because I was talking to someone over lunch and I was saying that for me, if I look at what we face over the next 10 years, I see food prices rising, I see energy prices rising, and this is all at a time when we're coming out of a very difficult economic time. And I think the social issues that presents is probably a topic for another day, but it's something where in industry, where we are seeing price rise, significant price rises, I think there is going to be significant political pressure on all of us to hold those price rises to a minimum. We're already seeing that pressure being put on us, and I'm sure that you will be seeing similar things. And it's really difficult when you're seeing your input costs rising like we all are.